Let me tell you a story. I was raised by a mother without a dad. Why? Because my mom had bigger balls than he did. Sorry for my language. So my dad was perfectly manly. He was tough and he was athletic. He was winning competitions and so on. What he didn't do is actually to take any responsibility. So he was drinking and gambling and going after pleasure. So my mom, seeing that, she did not approve of it, and then she kicked him out. So she dealt with his debt. And what she did next was to actually find me male models like my uncle and some of her friends, or maybe kids of her friends, who actually going to university, studying, raising their children, etc. See, my mother took traditionally male role in our family and at work as well. She was the only female manager in a huge corporation. Everyone else was a guy, and that was unheard of. So, and at that point, inadvertently, she basically broke the template. So I was raised up until that point that, like men supposed to be, like manly and make decisions, etc. But then when I realized what was happening, so she didn't tell me all of that right away. Over time, I kind of found out. And then I realized that my dad, although he was manly, he wasn't really doing what a man really supposed to do. But then my mom actually served that function in the family. If you, like me, you're probably facing the same seemingly impossible dilemma. How can we raise our sons to be tough and strong, never bend under the wind, and at the same time for them to be emotionally sensitive and authentic and vulnerable to be able to navigate this modern world? I gave it a lot of thought, and I think I figured out one way how we can look at it. So in this video, we're gonna explore what seems to be a problem, and I'm telling you, it's probably not you or me or the world. The problem is the template, the way how we perceive what traditional male is supposed to be. And then we'll explore one possible way of interpreting the signals and maybe some practical steps how we can overcome this parental challenge. My name is Dr. Ruben Gagarin. I'm child and adolescent psychiatrist and a fellow parent. So what do I mean by template? See, templates are very important. We have probably millions of them. So it's like a map of the world. It's something that gets installed in our brain, how we should understand the world, the shortcuts. So if I give you directions, I'm not going to describe you every single turn and stone and smell and light on your way from point A to point B. I'm going to tell you what the street to take and what turns to take, and that is how a map works. But map would never describe what real life is and how would be your experience on your journey. So the templates are essential for our functioning. If you had to figure out every step of our way from scratch, it would be too overwhelming within minutes. The problem becomes when we, parents, use outdated templates that are no longer applicable to the current situation. So, where did we get the templates? From our parents. Where did they get their templates? From their parents. So it basically travels through generations, and naturally these templates change. So, for example, in hunter-gatherer societies, the template was a hunter. So a traditional hunter in hunter-gatherer societies would be someone who is strong and fast and can track the animals. But when roles start changing, then this traditional male role became more a farmer who understands the seasons and crops and disciplined enough to wake up in the morning and toughen through the circumstances to raise the crops or stock. Then it changed to a factory worker who was supposed to work in a certain system, wake up on time, and follow certain steps to achieve his career goals. And then later it became more a manager or office worker or programmers, doctors, etc. So over time, what we call traditional male role changed dramatically. Even in the modern world, if you meet someone who is more traditionally masculine, let's say they go maybe hunting, but trust me, they're not hunting with a knife, they go with a rifle. So it is actually not the same. And they do have maps and possibly GPS. So it is very different from the model or a template of a hunter from traditional hunter-gatherer societies. So you can see the template is not solid, it's actually changeable. Previous generations had generations to change it, decades, maybe hundreds, or maybe even thousands of years to adjust these templates to the new environment. The problem is that the current template was supposed to be updated within one generation because the world changed so quickly. And of course it didn't, because it can only change over a few generations. So our job as parents to figure out what the problem is, break up the mold, and find alternative way. But we continued functioning on the same template, telling our sons to man up, not to cry like babies or girls, etc. What we achieved is that the boys between ages of 4 and 8 lose about 75% of their emotional expression. So the girls continue to develop normally, and the boys, due to this internalized messages to man up, basically stop expressing about 75% of their emotions. They bottle it up, they become impulsive, maybe aggressive, angry, they turn to drugs. Some of them unfortunately commit suicide, and in extreme cases they may end up in prison. So majority of prison population, vast majority is men, probably because they never learned how to express their emotions. So we understand that being aggressive and violent is not acceptable, and somehow we subconsciously send this message that any other emotion is not acceptable for a man, and it becomes an impossible dilemma. See, masculinity and femininity is not tied to any particular gender. There is no evidence that it is genetic and that it is tied to X or Y chromosome specifically. And then what is really a function? So behind this bravado and hunting and, like the animal skins, what is male and female role? As I was doing my research, what really made sense to me is look at this more like energies. Like you've seen the symbol yin yang, and it's like male energy and female energy, but it is also sun and moon and like steel and water, etc. So if you approach this from the energy perspective, then you can see that male role, like energy of like young energy, is supposed to create a citadel, like a castle. Basically, men are supposed to be strong enough to build the walls and protect them, so they keep the enemies away. And then, if something doesn't work, like a bad wall or whatever, they have enough strength and aggression to break it down. The same energy also responsible for competition and winning. But what winning does, it actually keeps people lonely, keeps them away from others. So what feminine energy or yin energy is supposed to do is actually bond us together. So that is the community energy, and that is something that fills this container, this vessel, this castle, fills it with meaning in creation. So it is not just about like crying and being vulnerable. It is much more important that female energy is actually responsible for creating and the male energy for destruction. So if it was only male energy, then we would end up with like very strong walls but nothing inside. When it comes to type of strength, so the young energy is more like a sword. The problem with swords is that you bend it in a certain way and it breaks. It's actually can get very fragile. And the female type of energy is more like water. It still gets from point A to point B, but instead of like cutting through a mountain, for example, it would flow around. So, and it inevitably fills all the empty spaces. How is that related to our conversation? Well, if I'm a kind of man that only expresses young energy, so again, being tough and aggressive, etc., well, the conclusion is that I probably would actually feel pretty empty. Without, if I had no creative energy, I would probably feel that all of this effort is like for no good reason. I would probably also feel pretty lonely because of this competition. If I'm the perfect man, then I would probably be the strongest and the toughest, and I would dominate everybody. But see, it's like it's pretty lonely up there on the podium. Like, okay, I may be the only one on the mountain, but if nobody's around, what's the point? I don't know about you, but I think we need balance, exactly like this symbol actually indicates, both male and female energy. So point one, we have to let go of this idea that masculinity and femininity is tied to gender. So two, we got to figure out how we can install this balance in both boys and girls. I'm not a perfect parent by any means. I have my share of regrets. But there was one thing I did, and I wonder if it works for you and what you think about it. So I included my kids into making decisions. So I created sort of this container. But then within the container, I let them to be whoever they wanted to be. For example, I made sports non-negotiable. So I told my kids 2 or 3 hours a week minimum they have to do sports, preferably competitive. So, but they have a choice which one and what level of competition, because to me, it's not very important if they become like an Olympic champion, but it's important that they learn how to compete healthy and take on challenge, deal with disappointments. Competition can teach a lot. And then I give them choice what athletics. So one of my sons picked tennis. And then as he was getting better, it also included private lessons. And the private lessons started at 6 a.m. in the morning, 2 or 3 times a week. So we had to wake up around 5 to be there on time for a warm-up, so we don't waste the instruction time on this. So I had to wake up this poor guy. He was 4 or 5 years old at like 5 a.m. in the morning. And of course, he didn't want to get out of the bed. And I didn't want to get him out of the bed because it was like cold and uncomfortable. And he was so sweet sleeping in his bed. But we had to. So I told him that if he doesn't want to go, that's fine. We can renegotiate kind of next cycle. Like when season is over, we can renegotiate. But in that moment, 5 a.m. in the morning, when the coach is on his way for the session, then we cannot skip. So there is no way. We have to toughen it up. See, it basically, I created this kind of system, and then I can relate and support my son within the system. So he cannot break the walls, and that I guess is my role as a father to kind of, like to protect the walls and its integrity. So, and the wall was, you cannot say no. You cannot say no in the moment to this particular thing because you had already made commitment. But now it actually freed me from letting him express whatever he wants, and me as well. So I could tell him that I actually can totally relate. I also don't want to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and drive you to that lesson. And I certainly understand that you don't want to do it, but we had made commitment, we have no choice, we have to do it. So on the message then, not to man up and not to be anybody that he is not, but the message is he has valid feelings that we all accept and understand. But having the feelings and saying I don't want to is not a good enough reason, so we have to push through. So I wonder how you deal with the situations. Leave a comment. Let me know how you deal with that. On a separate note, we sometimes send unconscious messages. Sometimes we may say or do something, or maybe our tone of voice may relay something very different from what we're actually trying to say. And I encourage you to follow my example and journal to understand yourself better, so to kind of find those blind spots that may sort of erupt in the middle of your conversation with your kids and kind of blindside you. I'm working on certain prompts, and if you sign up for my newsletter, I regularly share those ideas and I put them together in more kind of structured forms. So if you want to dig a little bit deeper, and the stakes are very high. We don't want our kids to be aggressive and violent, but we also don't want them to be softies who bend under every challenge in their life. So let's work together. Leave me a comment, share what you think, and thank you very much for watching. Come back for more. Bye-bye.